the Hamilton's principle. Hamilton's principle, one of the important principles in classical mechanics. And then we will see the Lagrange's equation of motion that we have already seen, that can be obtained from the Hamilton's principle. Okay, we start with the configuration space. So what is configuration space? We know if we have a system of n particles, 3n coordinates are there, but if k constraints act on the system, we have already seen constraints. If k constraints act on the system, there will be 3n minus k equal to small n generalized coordinates. 3n minus k equal to small n generalized coordinates. So q1, q2, q3, qn. The configuration of the system that is described by the values of these n generalized coordinates q1, q2, qn. So if we specify the values of these generalized coordinates q1, q2, qn, we get the instantaneous configuration of the system. Now if we consider a space, a hyperspace, rather a n-dimensional hyperspace, where these q1, q2, qn, they form the axis. So here we have q1, q2, q3, qn, n axis, which represent a n-dimensional hyperspace, a n-dimensional hyperspace. In that, if you take a point, that point will represent the instantaneous configuration of the system. Okay, because a point in that space, this small n dimensional space, that will give values of q1, q2, q3, qn, the generalized coordinates of the system. So that will give you, that point will represent the system. Okay, so it's a system point in this n-dimensional space, which is called configuration space. Okay, this is called the configuration space, right? So the state or the system is represented by a point in the configuration space. Okay, now as time goes on, the state of the system changes. Okay, the system, the coordinates are changing as time goes on, and the system point, the point, we represent the state of the system by a point in this configuration space. This moves in the configuration space, tracing out a curve. So that is shown here. The system point, as time progresses, it traces a trajectory in the configuration space. It travels along a path like this. Okay, so that is shown here. So it traces a path described as the path of motion of the system. So system point at some instant is here, then it gradually moves through the configuration space because the q1, q2, q3, qn, all these are all changing with respect to time. Okay, now so that's about the configuration space and the path of motion of the system represented in the configuration space. Okay, now we can discuss the Hamilton's principle. Hamilton's principle for monogenic systems. For monogenic systems. What are monogenic systems? Monogenic systems are those systems for which all forces are derivable. Forces can be derivable from a generalized scalar potential. Okay, for all the forces except the force of constraint are derivable from a generalized scalar potential where the scalar potential is the function of coordinates, velocities, and time. Okay, such systems are called monogenic. For monogenic systems, Hamilton's principle can be stated as follows: the system, the motion of the system, we know how to represent the motion of the system. We just saw in the configuration space. So the motion of the system from time t1 to time t2 is such that the line integral called the action or action integral. So what is action integral? Integral L dt, where L the Lagrangian t minus v. Okay, the motion system from time t1 to t2 is such that the line integral called action or action integral, integral dt. Okay, this one is L is the Lagrangian. So this is the action integral, where L is t minus v has a stationary value, or it is extremum for the actual path of the motion. So the actual path of the motion of the system in the the trajectory in the configuration space, that will be that path for which this integral L dt, which is called the action integral, that has got an extremum, or generally what is meant by extremum is minimum or maximum, but here generally minimum, or we can say it is the principle of least action. The system follows that path for which this action integral is minimum. Generally we say an extremum. Okay, extremum. So principle of least action, the action integral is minimum. Integral t1 to t2 L dt, this is minimum. Okay, so this is the Hamilton principle, seeing as the system will be always choosing the path for which the integral t1 to t2 L dt, the action integral, is an extremum, and in most cases it is minimum. Okay, least action. Okay, in the notation of the variation, calculus of variation, we say, since this is minimum, integral L dt is minimum, we say integral integral I, this is integral I, delta I, this is delta I, that is equal to delta L dt t1 to t2, that is equal to 0. Okay, that is equal to 0. So this is in the notation of the calculus of variation. We say the delta of that action integral, that is 0, because it is extremum. Okay, it's extremum. Now it's possible for us to obtain Lagrange's equation of motion from Hamilton's principle. Okay, we can obtain the Lagrange's equations of motion from Hamilton's principle. Okay, let's see how we do that. We start from the Hamilton's principle. Hamilton's principle is this: integral t1 to t2 L qj t qj dot t t. L is a function of qj dot, okay, comma t dt, this integral, the action integral. According to Hamilton principle, the motion of a conservative system from time t1 to t2 is such that the variation of the line integral delta I, that is equal to 0. I equal to this and delta I equal to 0. So delta I, delta t1 to t2 L qj dot t dt, that is equal to 0. So in that way we have the delta I, the variation in the action integral. This is what Hamilton principle is saying us. So we have the configuration space, the coordinate axis, q1, q2, q3, q4, etc. 2 points, see 2 dark points, 2 points here, and there are many paths connecting these 2 points in the configuration space, and these paths are different. So that variation in the path represented by a parameter alpha 1 for one path, alpha 2 for another path, alpha 3. So for each path the alpha will be different. Each path alpha will be different. Okay, so alpha shows, this parameter alpha shows the variation in the path. Okay, so we are labeling the different possible paths with the value of the parameter alpha, and paths are represented by qj t alpha. Now qj is function of alpha, because for each alpha, for each path, the qj's will be different. So I, the action integral, that becomes a function of alpha. So one can say the action integral as I of alpha integral t1 to t2 L, which is a function of qj dot and time. Okay, so the action integral, that will be different for different paths. Okay, that will be different for different paths. And what we do, we take dou I alpha, dou alpha. Okay, dou I alpha, dou alpha. So that will be integral t1 to t2. Here we have L, and it's a function of qj alpha t, qj dot alpha t. Okay. So we have to find variation with respect to q. So dou L dou qj dou alpha, then dou L dou qj dot dou alpha, dou L dou t dou alpha. So it's very clear, because what we are doing is we are taking dou I dou alpha. Okay, since L is function of qj dot and time t, we have to take this sigma j, because we have to consider variation with all the coordinates. Okay, q1, q2, q3, q1. That's why here the sigma j comes in. Okay, now in the delta variation, the variation that we are considering, with respect to alpha. When alpha changes to the different paths we have, there is no time variation, because the time is same, t1 to t2. There is no time variation along any path. The delta variation is with respect to the path only, not with respect to time. So there is no time variation along any path, and also at endpoints. So we can say dou t dou alpha is 0 or along all paths, dou t dou alpha, because the variation that we are considering is with respect to alpha for different paths, not with respect to the times that we are considering. So dou t dou alpha, no time variation along any path. So dou t dou alpha is 0 for all paths. So this will be 0, this term will be 0, dou t dou alpha is 0. Okay. So we have this, we will have only these two terms. We will have only these two terms. So this is dou I dou alpha d alpha, that is in t1 to t2, sigma j dou L dou qj dou alpha d alpha dt, plus sigma j dou L dou qj dot. I am writing this term. Here we have dou by dou alpha qj dot. Qj dot is dou qj by dou t, dou qj dou t, qj dot. So here we will have dou square qj dou alpha dou t, or dou t dou alpha. The order of differentiation is immaterial. Okay, so this can be written as dou square qj dou alpha dou t, or dou square qj dou t dou alpha. Okay, so I am writing this as dou square qj dou t dou alpha d alpha dt, and here I am integrating this by integration by parts principle, So for that I am writing this as like this. This dt get cancelled. So I will have dou qj dou alpha d alpha. integral t1 to t2 sigma j dou L dou qj this. Okay. So this is the first term same. Sorry, as we integrate by parts. First term is sigma j dou L dou qj. Dou L dou qj. This is not qj dot. This is dou L dou qj. This it comes from this dou qj dou alpha d alpha time t1 to t2. Here minus integral t1 to t2 sigma j d by dt of dou L dou qj dot. Okay, d by dt of dou L dou qj. Sorry, here I think qj dot is there. Yeah, qj dot is there. Yes, sorry. So qj dot is there. This qj dot is there. That qj dot will come here. Here it is missing. Qj dot. Dot is missing here. So qj dot is there. So integral t1 to t2 sigma j d by dt of dou L dou qj dot dou qj dou alpha d alpha dt. And dou qj dou alpha, when you apply the limits here, dou qj dou alpha, when you apply the limits at t1 and t2, this is E0 at the endpoints. At t1, at time t1, the system is at one endpoint. T2, it is at the other endpoint. So this is 0 at t2 and t1, because for all alpha endpoints are same. Okay, for all alpha the endpoints are same. There is no change in qj with respect to alpha at the endpoints. Here it is different. Okay, so dou qj dou alpha is 0 at endpoints. So this term vanishes. This term vanishes, and it only this one remains. Only this one remains. So this is dou I alpha, dou alpha. We put a d alpha here. That will be integral t1 to t2 sigma j dou L dou qj minus d by dt of dou L dou qj dot dou qj dou alpha d alpha dt. Okay. So this is dou I alpha. So dou I alpha, that is integral t1 to t2 sigma j dou L dou qj minus d by dt of dou L dou qj dot dou qj dou qj. We are writing this as dou I alpha and writing dou qj dou alpha d alpha, dou qj dou alpha d alpha as delta qj. Okay. So this will be equal to 0, because the variation we have already seen by Hamilton principle. Delta I, that is equal to 0. Delta I, that is equal to 0, because it's an extremum. It's an extremum. Delta I is equal to 0. So this is equal to 0. So this can be 0 only if each of these coefficients, the coefficient is dou L dou qj minus d by dt of dou L dou qj dot. Okay, we have to take some more different j values, sigma j. So each of these coefficients have to be 0, because qj's are independent. All these qj's are independent. So dou L dou qj minus d by dt of dou L dou qj dot is 0 for each j. Okay. So dou I alpha is equal to 0 if and only if the coefficients of delta qj vanishes. So dou L dou qj minus d by dt of dou L dou qj dot equal to 0 for j equal to 1 to 3n. Or we can write it in the by interchanging the two terms by like this, because right hand side is 0. D by dt of dou L dou qj dot minus dou L dou qj is equal to 0 for j equal to 1, 2, 3, n, which are basically the Lagrange's equation of motion for conservative systems.